truck. You started getting all these calls from protesters and texts and emails. Did anyone who might share your view finally step up and say, let me help this guy out?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, after the first 30 hours when John Sherrick got it, his interview actually was the first to go viral, and he got my message out, and I explained during the interview, I'm just making a prediction that during this regime, if you want to call it that, or during this administration, they're holding this office, or while they're in office, I don't think we're going to have an uptick in the economy. He got that message out. There was a huge outpouring of what I would term patriots and like-minded business owners that called, and because my information was out there, they were calling, leaving messages. I had a number of different comments, most of them not vulgar, most of them very, very professional. One gentleman did say, you have a pair of testicles, but he used another word, and keep up the good work. And but I got calls from all over the nation. I actually got a couple calls from outside. I couldn't tell you which countries, but there was. I do know one of them was an American that was residing in China.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, it went global.
Outstanding. Wow.
But and I'm still getting that kind of support. I'm still getting phone calls and a lot of positive input. I'm getting a little to no negative comments. Every once in a while I'll get an email now, but the liberal left seems to have moved on,
right.
And I guess they're looking at other targets or getting more involved in their protest or trying to find a place to use the bathroom. I don't know.
Yeah, they don't have much perseverance, it seems, but they certainly can be troublesome. No question about that.
And vulgar. The vulgarity was overwhelming.
Yeah, they just they think they're going to make a point. Yeah, that's always been my issue with the world in which we live. People lacking the ability to communicate effectively with one another. Taking the low ground so quickly and so easily, raising voices and yelling. I've always found out that if you're having a conversation or a discussion with somebody and they go to the point of raising their voice to you, you've already won you've already won it. Because if they can't talk in a civil tone to you, it's because they believe that by shouting it makes them right, when in fact they're actually wrong. And I discovered that years ago, and I've realized, we'll let them shout. But you know what? Not on my show. So there. Now, Bill, if I might back up a bit, if you don't mind, how'd you feel about me asking you a whole boatload of questions about your background? You're growing up, the people that influence you. Here's the thing, and I tried explaining this last night. I've had different people on Loving, Caring, and Sharing, and in the news media, they always do their hit and run. They'll give you, they'll interview a guy. They'll come out and they'll talk to you, and then you might end up on the news for 5 minutes. You might get 10 minutes. You might even get 15 minutes if it's some sort of a round panel discussion of some kind, and folks will be asking all these questions about your views, all right? But they don't know who you are. Now, I got a little clip here which kind of sums things up in my opinion. Now, if you all bear with me for just 1 minute, this is taken from a movie that came out a few years ago called Amistad, which is a story pre-Civil War about a bunch of slaves that overtook a slave ship, commandeered it, and were able to actually take it, and it ended up in Boston, and it became a huge court case, the Amistad slaves, and there was a scene between Morgan Freeman and Anthony Hopkins where Morgan Freeman comes to him to ask for some help in this issue. Anthony Hopkins plays John Quincy Adams, and he basically is trying to, get John Quincy Adams on board to be of some help in this, but he's not showing him much interest. And what happens is as Morgan Freeman's about to leave, the guy's estate, he stops him and he asks him some questions. And this really sums up for me what I want to be able to do here as opposed to what the media does. All right. So if you guys just bear with me for 1 minute here, listen to this little clip.
What is their story, by the way? Sir? What is their story? Why, What is their story? Mrs. Jolson, you're from where originally?
Georgia, sir.
Georgia.
Yes, sir.
Does that pretty much sum up what you are? A Georgian? Is that your story? No. You're an ex-slave who's devoted his life to the abolition of slavery and overcoming great obstacles and hardships along the way, I should imagine. That's your story, isn't it? You and this young so-called lawyer have proven you know what they are. They're Africans. Congratulations. What you don't know, and as far as I can tell, haven't bothered in the least to discover, is who they are. Right?
Yeah, indeed. I'll tell you, when you got somebody like that talking to you, you want to make sure you know what the answer is. And the answer is, the question is, I want to know who Bill Looman is. So that's why I bring that up. That encapsulates what I want to do here tonight. I want to let everybody know, because we got listeners in the United States, UK, Europe, all around the world that are listening in, and I want them to know who Bill Looman really is. So if you don't mind, Bill, I'd like to go back to your background. Where'd you grow up? Can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing?
Oh, yes, sir. I was born in Athens, Texas, Henderson County. My father was back then it was termed a construction engineer. He built kilns, so we moved around a lot. So I went to schools throughout the continental U.S. in a number of schools because of the moving, and I went to schools in places such as California, Mississippi, Georgia, Florida, Pennsylvania. We lived there also. Huh. Ohio, Illinois. And I actually, the last 4 years of school, my dad wanted to get me in someplace where I could spend 4 years in high school steady, and I ended up graduating high school in Illinois in a place called North Green, and that's located in Whitehall, Illinois. Mm-hmm. With that kind of the gist of my education, I tell everybody I was born in the Lone Star State, raised a lot in the South, and had the luxury of a Yankee education. So,
how about that? Huh. So, growing up, who were the people that influenced you?
My dad influenced me tremendously, and simply because he was a working man. He was a lifelong Democrat. He was Union. Uh-huh. Which kind of goes against what I am now. Mm-hmm. But actually, if you look at the two ideologies of the Democrats back then and the Republicans now, they were very similar.
Yeah,
working man. Right. So yeah, my father was a major influence in my life, and I always kind of liked John Wayne. Mm-hmm. And there was
you gotta love the Duke.
Yeah, you gotta love the Duke. Yeah, he didn't cut no husk. But there was a school teacher named Diz, and that's he was also our football coach. Uh-huh. He was a Marine. He served in the Marine Corps during World War II. Mm-hmm. And the story that he told us, he's also our health teacher and our driver's ed teacher. The story he would tell his class about his service in World War II is that he was of course he was injured, received a Purple Heart. And he was on Guadalcanal when it happened. He said, I zigged when I should have zagged. And that stuck in the back of my head, and he was a major influence in my life. I don't know how this will go over, but if you can imagine the time and era back then, back in the late 70s, early 80s, you loved your idols. You loved your heroes. And I had a love for him that was tremendous. Our whole football team would have died for him. He was a great leader.
How about that? So how did you got out of high school? What did you do when you got out of school?
Initially, it was during the Carter administration. Our economy was in a similar turmoil as it is now.
It was in the tank, yeah.
And it's in the history books. I got out, actually joined the Army Reserve on my birthday in 1981. I was still in high school. under a program called ROTC-SMP. And in that program, if anybody remembers back in that era that's a soldier, you join the Army Reserve, you would then go to Army Basic Training.
Right.
And then that would take care of your first 2 years of military science. And after that, you went to a university of your choice that was approved. And after your second successful year in that university, you would be commissioned as a second lieutenant.
Mm-hmm.
After I got out of Army Basic, I got out in August of '81. I then entered the economy trying to find a job. Mm-hmm. The Army promptly lost my pay records, so all my drill meetings I wasn't getting paid for.
Oh, nice.
And I had a cousin that he was a step cousin. He was joining the Marine Corps Reserves, and the Marine Corps recruiter dropped him off after he had successfully taken his first oath at the AFE station. And I looked at this little short staff sergeant, and I said, "What can you do for me?" And I explained my situation to him. He said, "We'll just pull a Form 364. We'll do an in-service transfer. I can have you in Marine Corps boot camp by the end of the year."
Oh, yeah?
I joined the Marine Corps December 9th,
mm-hmm.
and on December 29th, just after Christmas, I was standing on the yellow footprints in San Diego, California, in the Marine Corps Recruit Depot.
How about that? So what happened then?
I spent 10 years in the Marine Corps, got out after, actually it was 10 years, 6 months.
Where were you stationed?
Got all over. I've seen a lot of duty in Iwakuni, Japan. I've seen a little bit of service in Korea when we were doing Team Spirit there.
Oh, yeah.
It's a joint exercise that happens when you're over in that part of the world. Went to the Philippines, 2 weeks in Norway, training reservists because I was on I&I duty at the time. A lot of stateside duty in Beaufort, South Carolina, Atlanta, Georgia.
Right.
I've been to most of the bases here that are like Camp Lejeune, Cherry Point, Pendleton, so on and so forth. I supported the team effort of Desert Storm. So, and my primary MOS was avionics. So I was one of those guys that actually worked to the component level at what he termed eye level. The squadron guys would take bad equipment off the aircraft. They'd send it to us. We'd repair it down to the component level. We'd put it back in the supply system, and then when they had a call for it, they'd pull it out of supply and put it back on another aircraft.
Oh, okay. And so, when did you get out of the Marines? When was that? What year was that?
July 15th, 1992.
92. Okay. So what happened? Now you're a married man now, right? So.
Yes, I'm on a winning marriage. I'm on my third marriage. I'm married to my wife Vanessa.
Uh-huh.
Prior to that, I had two other wives, and because of because of our youth and because of being deployed so often, it weighs heavy on any marriage in the military.
Sure.
And both those marriages failed, but this one, my wife and I have been together. We're going on 16 years.
That's great.
And she's the reason why I am what I am today.
Yeah, how about that, huh? The woman behind the man. So, now you claim to be one of those guys that like Jesus. Is that right?
Yeah, I like him. You
don't? Yeah, I do. I'm saying tongue in cheek. Would you care sharing with us about your faith? How you came to become a Christian, and how that helped form your worldviews.
Well, to begin with, my dad. Let me step back to what my dad believed in, and that'll kind of bring to light where I was allowed to go. My dad was he told everybody he was an atheist, and later on. Yeah, later on I asked him to define that after he allowed me to go to church, and I got more and more learned about the Baptist faith. Mm-hmm. And the way he defined it, he said, if there's a God, fine. If there's not, fine. I said, well, Dad, that's not atheist. That's agnostic. That's if I'm not correct on this is an old memory. Please correct me. But I define him as being an agnostic. Is that how you would define him?
Yeah, that's exactly. An agnostic typically isn't